Hey, unfortunately, got a little backed up here. So my audio is cutting out, it's glitching out. So there's some issues there. I'm gonna have to fix this. It's like the audio and the screen aren't syncing. I think it's just 'cause my internet's been like terrible lately. And like the cloud just can't process it in time. So we're gonna roll with this for probably the next few videos. But the question I'm going to be answering in this presentation is training to failure dangerous? All right. A lot of the people sort of seem to have this preconceived notion that training to failure is, it's dangerous, it's going to cause injury and strain over time, and that it'd be better to stay, 1 to 3 reps in reserve on your sets so that you won't accumulate this wear and tear over time. But the answer is no. It's not dangerous if you train correctly. And this is the same with training with reps in reserve. It's the same deal. And in fact, the failure rep will actually be the safest if you perform it properly. Mike Mentzer has also talked about this as well in his heavy duty book. But this is why training to failure is not dangerous. I'm going to get kind of into the science of it and also give some logical overview as to why it doesn't really make sense that it would be so dangerous. All right, so proper form is really going to be the key in, if your training is going to be dangerous or not. So many people really have no clue how to safely train to muscular failure. And many people, they ego lift and they do all kinds of stupid stuff that will actually cause them to get injured, not because they go to failure, but rather because of the fact that, they are using improper form. And of course, if you use improper form and you're going super, super hard on your sets, that's going to create an injury always, 100% of the time. Eventually it will. So this creates injury and it makes people assume that training to failure is dangerous, right? It makes them assume that, okay, well, I was, swinging the weight up and down and I was going to failure and then I got injured. So I should just go 2 to 3 reps in reserve and use the same form and I won't get injured. Reality is that, yeah, your chances of getting injured are probably less, but you're probably still going to get injured no matter what if you're going to use improper form. So it is dangerous only if you don't use proper form or you use, you have poor exercise selection. So you're doing stupid exercises and going to failure on those. No matter how good your form is on those exercises, you're always going to kind of get screwed over. So, how do I train safely? Right? The big question. So, you must ensure that your exercise selection is proper for training to muscular failure. So, an example of what would be an unsafe exercise selection is performing a barbell bench press without a spotter present. All right, so that would be problematic for a lot of different reasons. If you hit failure, but you try again for another rep and you can't get the weight up, well then you have problems, right? You could die potentially. So that's a very problematic exercise. I would also say deadlifts to failure, especially in higher rep ranges, like beyond 5 repetitions. Barbell conventional deadlifts, I think trap bars more safe, will also be problematic. You could definitely risk some improper form just because of the fact that it's such a, you know, um, systemic, that's the word I was looking for, systemic exercise. And it requires basically your full body to perform the exercise properly. If you do kind of one thing wrong on deadlift and you go to failure, you are risking injury at a very high amount, right? You could really mess yourself up if you're not using proper form on deadlifts, which is relatively easy to do, especially if you're going to failure. An example of safe exercise selection would be a flat dumbbell bench press. So, with the flat dumbbell bench press, you can, well, first of all, you don't need to have a spotter because if you hit failure, though it is still a little bit risky, you can throw the weights, right? Um, you don't have to get the weights off of your chest, because obviously on a barbell bench, the weight will be on your chest and you have to get it off, or else you might, like I said, die, right? So you don't risk that with a flat dumbbell bench press. Another thing is to make sure you have a slow exercise tempo. What I recommend as a general guideline, if you're really worried about getting injured on going to failure, is 4 seconds up, a 2 second hold, and 4 seconds on the way down. Or if you're doing like a dumbbell bench, 4 seconds down, right? 2 second hold at the bottom, and 4 seconds up. That's pretty slow. And I did that for a little while. And I will say it didn't affect my results in the gym at all. A lot of people had this notion as well that slower reps build less fast twitch fibers, when in reality, it's only how close you get to muscular failure that's going to dictate um, the the stimulation of the fast twitch muscle fibers. For me, I don't really do this tempo, admittedly. I go on a slow eccentric. I go as fast as I can, and I put this in quotes, as fast as I can on, the concentric portion of the lift, because I don't go explosive, I don't ego it, but with proper form while keeping everything else kind of static, I go as fast as I can, right? So that's not going to be like super speed, but it's fast. And then I hold at the bottom, or I hold kind of the stretch position, not like Mike Israetel stretch, but like, the bottom portion of the lift, or the top if I'm doing like a bicep curl. And then I go back on the way down real slow. That's how I do it. It's still relatively slow, but the concentric portion is definitely not 4 seconds unless I'm reaching failure or at failure, in which the concentric portion will be a lot longer than 4 seconds. And then we also have to get into another reason why people get injured training to failure. They are overtraining. Their central nervous system is fatigued. So a lot of people will train to failure 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 days a week. And this creates a lot of CNS fatigue, right? Your nervous system is going to be fried if you're doing this, especially week in, week out, for months on end, years on end. This can and will lead to overtraining, and overtraining will make your body much more susceptible to injury, right? You're not going to be using pristine form. Your muscles are already going to be fatigued even just walking into the gym, and this is not what you want. When you walk into the gym, you want your muscles to be completely fresh and ready to go. So this will overall make your body more susceptible to injury. So train no more than 3 days per week on an HIT protocol. I've said in past times that 4 days a week is viable. However, I would even say doing that for week in, week out, for months on end can definitely lead to CNS fatigue and overtraining. Even if you're younger folk like me, who is 16 and kind of in the prime of, his youth, um, this will cause problems. Everyone's body is relatively going to react the same to the same things. Obviously, we grow older over time. We grow more fragile. So, you might need to lower to 1 to 2 days a week of training maximum on an HIT protocol where you're training to failure, or beyond on every set. But nonetheless, no more than 3 days a week. I train 3 days a week because I've found I can tolerate that, and that's fine with me. I also like being in the gym, so that really helps me kind of scratch that itch. Um, but yeah, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, I'm getting injured, or I just feel burnt out, and I'm training to failure all the time." And it's like, how many days are you training? Oh, 6 days a week. How many sets do you do per exercise? Oh, like two to three. And it's like, yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. That adds up. You're not gonna do anything on that. You need to do, the minimum effective dose for your training so that you can recover and rest properly. That's what a lot of people don't understand, or just a lot of people are too addicted to the gym in general, in order so that they can kind of, like I said, scratch that itch. I know I somewhat am, but it becomes problematic to an extent if that's all you're doing. You're actually creating unnecessary stress on your body doing that, and that's kind of a hot take. That's a controversial take, but over time, that's going to definitely take a toll on you. So yeah, that's gonna do it for the video. I would say the key takeaways, guys, is to use effective, safe exercises, keep a relatively slow tempo on your exercises, and make sure that you're not overtraining or training too frequently throughout the week, right? And, if you do all that, training to failure will not be dangerous. And as a matter of fact, it will probably be the safest form of exercise you can possibly do. So, with that in mind, guys, as always, God bless.